What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 4 different wide receiver versus DB one-on-one clips. The first 2 clips are going to be 2 bad examples of route running, and then the second 2 clips are going to be 2 good examples of route running and what you guys can do to improve these bad habits. So I hope this video helps you guys out. And also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to get some work in with us this offseason, we're going to be traveling out to 6 more states across the country. We're going to be coming out to Columbus, Ohio on May 14th and May 15th. Then we're coming out to Chicago, Illinois, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah. We just added that camp this week, and then Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to one of those 6 different locations, check out that very first link in the description below, fellas. We'd love to have you out. Again, it's a 2-day camp, 8 hours of training total, and it's going to be a small group atmosphere. It's not one of those camps where we get 100, 150 kids and just run you through the drills. It's not what it is. It's more of like kind of a retreat style camp, if you will. So check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get started. So now, first route here, this is a bad example, right, of a fade route. So this receiver gets rerouted all the way to the sideline. And so it really starts with the press release, okay? So now, when you guys are coming off in one-on-ones, the thing you have to understand, it's always man coverage, right? So when it's man coverage, a DB is supposed to be looking at what? He's supposed to be looking at your hips. So when you guys are coming off the line, when you guys are making a move at the top of the break, that's what we always have to be mindful of. Now, I'm not saying you got to think about that when you're in the live, one-on-one situation, but it's something that you want to think about when you're doing drill work, when you're doing things that are going to help you against press coverage. So when this wide receiver comes off the line, right, and he makes this move, he does everything right? He steps outside the guy's frame. He's attacking his inside shade to try to get him off the platform so he could take the outside release. But obviously it doesn't work, and this DB is just going to get hands and reroute him to the sideline. So there's 2 reasons why this didn't work, right? One easy way would be to say, oh, well, he just needs to get the hands off of him. But even if he does swat the DB's hands, he's still getting squeezed to the sideline, and that is not much space for the quarterback to throw him open. What it comes down to is what he does with his upper body off the line. So a DB is, like we said, looking at the hips. He ain't looking at the head and the shoulders. So when you come off the line and you guys do a release, but you're just leaning with your head and your shoulders, that doesn't do much because look at his hips. His hips are still staying square, and it's pretty much his shoulders are still staying square. He's just giving a little lean with the upper half. That's why when wide receivers, when you guys are doing any kind of drill work, any kind of cutting work, it can't just be a lean with your upper body. It can't just be a shoulder and head fake. It's got to be a hip fake. You got to throw your hip with this cut and really try to sell with that upper body. What I tell my wide receivers is you don't want to be playing basketball. You don't want to be dribbling, right? You want to be ripping. You want to take this right arm and rip it across your body and really try to turn your hips, turn your shoulders, because that's where that DB is going to be looking. But if you just give that little head and shoulder fake every single time, a disciplined DB, because that's what I'm trying to get you guys ready for, not a DB who's bad or who has bad technique, is going to get hands and force you all the way to that sideline every single time. So we have to focus on not only selling with my legs, not only stepping outside of his frame, even though DB's not looking there, but I got to bring my hips. I have to throw my hip and actually commit my upper half, because that's what will get the DB to move. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Again, right idea. We just got to make sure we take care of those things to sell the actual route, or else this is going to be the result. So now, second clip we're going to be talking about here is a common look that we'll see at one-on-one situations. This is another kind of bad example of route running, I guess, some common mistakes that a lot of people make. So when you guys have to run a post route or a dig route against an inside shade off man coverage DB, what should your thought process be right there? Now, a lot of people will say, hey, I want to attack his leverage. I want to square him up, attack his midline, and then get him to backpedal and break in front of him, right? But here's the thing. Like I said in the clip before, I'm trying to get you ready for a DB who knows what he's doing. I'm trying to get you ready for a college level DB. And if you attack the leverage of a good DB, what is he going to do? He is going to keep his leverage to the inside. So you're going to end up running that post right into him. So what we have to do is we have to try to attack his outside shoulder, because my goal is to get him to flip his hips to the fade so I can slip back under and run that post with plenty of separation. Not to mention the spacing aspect of things. But in man coverage, like we talked about, where's the DB's eye supposed to be? Hips. So if I start to give the route away with my hips, I'm not getting any separation, and that's what people love to do on this example. So let's play this full speed. So he has the right idea off the line, but that was a very, very weak break because you see what his body did. There is a noticeable change in what his pad level does, and that is very common in wide receivers. They start to turn their hips and turn their shoulders and change direction, if you will, before the cut changes direction for them. So 2 things will happen here. You're not selling the route long enough because because that DB starts to see and you telegraph your break, and that cut becomes a cut that's outside of your frame. Your body's leaving before the cut gets down, so you lose explosion, you lose any kind of burst that you could have off of this cut to get you out of the route. So what we have to focus on doing is staying committed. When this wide receiver runs a route, he should be coming right at that outside shoulder, and everything about this should look like a fade. DB's inside shade, right? So he's got a lot of ground to cover out here. That's where we want to threaten him in this case. It's no different than like if you had to run a slant route versus inside shade press. What would you do? You'd attack the outside. They call it a diamond release, trying to get this guy to bite on the fade, and you'd want to slip back underneath. You wouldn't just attack his leverage because he'd keep it. So we just have to make sure, fellas, on any kind of route in that situation, I got to stay committed until I make that cut. Stay committed until the last possible second, because a disciplined DB will notice any kind of route indicator like changing up your pad level or rounding your hips and your shoulders. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Again, right idea by this wide receiver, just cannot round that body language to get space. Okay, so now this is going to be a great example of route running against one-on-ones. So this is the same concept as that post versus inside shade, except it's flipped now. So now I have outside shade man coverage, and I have to run an out route. But it's the same concept, right? Because remember, we have inside shade press and inside shade off man, and I have an inside breaking route. I'm going to be attacking his outside shoulder, get him to flip and slip back underneath. So now if I had to run a 10-yard out, but this DB was outside shade off man, I would just flip it. I'd attack his inside shoulder, get him to flip his hips out, and then slip back underneath on the out route. Maybe throw him by, or maybe if I could work to restack if he's a little bit closer. Now, the time you would want to attack his leverage is if you had to run like an inside breaking route. So if you had to run a post route and he was outside shade, that's when you'd attack his leverage. But let's watch it full speed. So this wide receiver does a great job of attacking it, not giving away the route, and being able to create separation. He ends up catching this thing right here. So let's break it down. So this is what we should have done on the post route in the clip before, but we should be going as hard as we can. This guy's outside shade, right? So we got to understand, number one, his thought process. Protect the outside. He will not let us run the outside release fade, go run a corner with an outside release. So a lot of wide receivers don't know that. They automatically think, oh, I'm just going to square him up. But he's just going to weave to the outside because he has no help over here. The only reason he's outside shade in a real game scenario is because he has help to the inside. He's trying to force you to the help. So we want to make him think it's still man coverage though. So we want to make him think I'm just running a deep post, a seam, a fade, whatever it is. So that's what I have to do with my speed and my body language. So he comes off the line, you see, head is down. Hips and shoulders are committed. He's in full stride. All of those things are going to get that DB to flip his hips. And then you see at the last second, he breaks this thing off. Meanwhile, his hips and his shoulders are still committed to that inside move. He lets the cut right here, the hip drop, however you want to think of it, be the thing that changes direction for him, not changing direction with his upper half before the foot gets down. And trust me, fellas, that is what will get me open when I have to run those different situations. It's not always about attacking his leverage. Yes, there are times when you want to attack his leverage. When the route is away from the DB's leverage initially, that's when you want to attack him. But when the route is to the leverage, you got to pick a shoulder, either his inside or outside shoulder. Let's sell the 9, sell the inside route, and flip that DB's hips. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great example of how to run a 10-yard out versus outside shade off man coverage. Okay, so now, last clip I want to talk about is how in wide receiver versus DB one-on-ones, what you need to do here is you need to pair your routes together. Okay, so pairing routes together comes from your release, comes from your move at the top of the route, however you want to think about it, but you got to make sure that what you decide to do looks similar, especially if you're going up against a DB, like the same DB almost every single time, right? Maybe you're in a practice atmosphere and you guys like to do ones and you're going up against, like senior DBs, junior DBs, whoever, but you're trying to show out and you're trying to, impress coaches to be able to get on the field. You got to make yourself as unpredictable as possible, and that comes from making your releases look the same so the DB doesn't get a read on you, right? So this release is going to be a slide release, right? So let's play this thing full speed. So this receiver does a slide to the outside, 1-2 crossover to the inside, and then wins on this fade route. And he's got about, that's a ton of separation on the goal line, in my opinion, right? So when we go here, he does this slide, right? So a slide release is pretty much like a change in tempo where you kind of slow play it to the outside. It's like a shuffle to the outside. And it's mainly to make this DB think that it's either to make him do one of two things. Either sit to the inside so we could go outside and run a fade, or make him jump way outside because I'm sliding off the platform and then I run a slant. Now, with this slide release that he does right here, so many DB coaches are taught or teach people, hey, as soon as you see that slide, oh, just sit to the inside. Expect that he's going to be running a slant. So when you slide to the outside like this, you have to be unpredictable. I got to be able to run a fade off of this exact same release, just like how I can run a slant off of this exact same release. So I want to make it look the same. It's the same tempo. I slide to the outside. It's the same gather steps with my feet. I'm keeping the same range. I'm not going too flat. I'm not going too skinny. I'm right at this 45 degree where this DB's got to sit right there and is forced to watch my hips. So when I slide on that 45, like I said again, it's the same timing. Because if you guys quicken it up when you're running a fade, DB's going to pick up on that. A good DB will. Because especially when DBs have film study in a real game scenario and you're trying to pair these routes together and you guys come off the line, and let's say when you do this slide and you go run a fade, you quicken up the slide, you kind of rush it a little bit because you're anxious to get out. And then when you have to run a slant, you take your time a little bit more. A good DB will pick up on that. It has to be the exact same angle off the line, that 45, and it has to be the exact same speed off the line. So we're that much more unpredictable to this DB. So he slides off the line on that 45, gives that crossover. You see hips and shoulders selling this thing, very similar to the first example we talked about. But you see how his hips turn and his shoulders turn. That's what gets a DB to move because that's where he's looking. We keep him to the inside, make it look like that slant, and go win on that fade route. That is a textbook example. So last thing for wide receiver versus DB one-on-ones, what you have to do is you got to pair your releases together. Make yourself unpredictable, especially if that DB doesn't have film study to rely on. You should have a field day. Wide receiver versus DB one-on-ones. It's mainly for the receivers. I'm going to be honest with you. Like the DBs are at such a disadvantage in that case. But as a receiver, my mindset needs to be I'm winning every single rep because you should have a plan for every single situation that they're going to throw at you. Let's play this thing again full speed. Great job by this wide receiver using the same tempo, hitting that crossover, and then winning on that fade route. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. I always appreciate the feedback from you guys. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you're local to one of these 6 different states we're traveling out to, we're coming to Columbus, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Los Angeles, California. Check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out to one of our 2-day long camps. I'll see you guys next time.